Find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
Today, we bask in the light of mustachioed greatness. Hi, this is Daniel Segura, host of the Mustachioed Podcastio. You like mustaches? You like movies? You like sexy Chinganos? Well, the Podcastio is the place for you. We are talking legendary mustaches from Charles Bronson to the Great Burt Reynolds to the OG Ice-T. Find the Mustachioed Podcastio anywhere you listen to podcasts. That is M-O-U-S-T-Ashioed Podcastio.
Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy.
And I'm Diva.
And this is Twisted Listers, a podcast about murder
and lists.
Brought to you by the Podmoth Podcasting Network. Check out all the other shows. And I just wanted to give a shout out and let everybody know we have a new patron only episode out on Patreon. It's the Santa Rosa Hitchhiker Murders.
It was super good.
Yeah, I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud. I did this one and feeling really good. So if you guys want to join us on Patreon, there's a $1 level and a $5 level. The $1 level, you can literally just like forget you ever did it, and please do, and just like keep giving us $1 forever. We'll send you stickers, and you get a lot of murder. There's a bunch of episodes on there, even with like how slowly we've been adding them. There's like a pretty good backlog if you join right now. And Diva has a murder map with almost 300.
Yes, I was actually gonna like purposefully get it up to 300 and then do like a little celebratory post on the Patreon and be like, woo.
So yeah, so there's a lot of stuff on there. You guys can join. It helps keep us going. We do have ads on here now, but like, you know, it's nice to have a little more support. The patrons are the wind beneath our wings. We love you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you would like to join us on Patreon, it's patreon.com/twistedlisters. If you'd like to join us on TikTok, where my most recent one just suddenly shot up to like 60,000 views for like no reason, but that's awesome. It's just at Twisted Listers.
It's that Brian Koberger algorithm.
It is, yeah. And like people are like, this information, like nobody's been rude about it, but it's kind of old information at this point.
Right.
People are like, oh, I thought this and that. And I'm like, yeah, that happened after I posted this. Y'all just aren't paying attention to how old it is. But
look at the date,
anyway,
look at the timestamp.
Yeah. But everybody's been cool. There are far less trolls than normal. Anyway, if you want to join us there, it's at Twisted Listers. If you'd like to join us on Instagram, where we do most of our posting, you can do that at
Twisted Listers PCast.
If you would like to send us an email with case suggestions, which guys, we want to do another like listener, requests, please do that at
twistedlisterspod@gmail.com.
And if you want to check out our website, it's
twistedlisterspod.com.
That's right. Okay, so rolling into this new episode, this is a new list this week.
Mm-hmm.
And you chose is Killer Couples.
Yeah, just to keep belated, because we kind of forgot about Valentine's Day, although last week really worked for it.
It really did randomly.
But this is like Valentine's Day, the sequel. And it's a topic we did a long time ago, but that episode is down. And I think this week we're doing all new ones anyway. So it's not really a remake. Yeah.
So we can do this list every February and just pull more from the original list.
Because there's so many.
There's so many. And the first time we did it, we did 10 cases, which was like way too much work for us. So now we got to do a little bit deeper dives on these. I'm pretty excited. So
yeah, and also there's some that are like, okay, we've all heard Fred and Rose West lately, like there's some really big ones, so this was nice to kind of do just slightly lesser known but still gnarly huge cases.
Yeah, I feel like the one I'm doing right now was big at the time, but in the 90s, and it didn't really have the lasting, like the staying power of some of the other ones. So I wanted to bring it back to the forefront because it's pretty wild. So I guess I go first, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, this is the story of Sarah Edmondson and Ben Darras.
Okay.
This takes place in 1995 in Oklahoma and the surrounding states.
I feel like I know nothing about this at all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I knew a little bit, but like not. I just was like, oh, it's one of the copycat killers, so whatever. Which would be another good list to do. Anyway, I'm going to start by talking about the movie Natural Born Killers. This movie came out in 1994. It was directed by Oliver Stone, and it starred Juliette Lewis and Woody Allen, among others. It also has a completely insane performance by Robert Downey Jr. Before he became Iron Man and this like polished Hollywood star. It was kind of still in, I don't know if he was in recovery at that point, but
when he had grit to him.
Yeah, exactly. And it definitely comes out in this movie.
I mean, I'm very happy that he's like, clean and normal and happy for himself, but the grit was nice. Yeah.
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that we have these performances from back when he was a mess, but I'm really, really glad that he's not a mess anymore. And I would absolutely give up these performances for him to have had like a good life forever.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That being said, he's a rich white guy, so I don't care that much.
I think he's like nice, though. He has cute cats.
No, actually, I have a friend who is an artist, and Robert Downey Jr. collects his art, and he just says that he's like the coolest fucking dude.
Okay, cool. I'm not making that up then.
No, you're not. Like, he's actually fucking rad. So
I just like that he has cats. I like that he has cats.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
who doesn't love a cat lover,
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so Natural Born Killers is a fucking wild ass movie. It was originally written by Quentin Tarantino, which I don't think a lot of people know.
Oh.
But Oliver Stone rewrote it to the point where Tarantino disowned the film later.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. I didn't know that bit at all.
Yeah, so he got a writing credit despite asking to not have one. He's like, I don't want my name attached to this. And they were like, legally, we're going to have to still do it. Okay. So his name is on the movie, but he didn't want it to be there. And that's interesting because his films are known for extreme violence.
Yeah, what didn't he like about it?
I don't know. I couldn't find it.
It's not the violence.
No, I can't speak for him, but it could be the glorification of the violence without any sort of real meaning or narrative. Like, even if you think about his movies where there's a lot of violence, usually it's the bad guys doing the violence. Like,
I feel like he glorifies violence. That's his whole thing.
Yeah, but like in Reservoir Dogs, all the violent motherfuckers die. So there's not a ton. The only, like, he's more started glorifying violence in a more like traditional way recently with like Inglourious Bastards, where everybody's like cheering when the Nazis all get killed.
Yeah.
But prior, I feel like it was more social commentary.
He's just a guy who should not take moral stands on anything.
So. I'm trying to like give him a leg to stand on. He's not one. You're right. I love Quentin Tarantino movies, though. I think they have a lot of like.
I think he's probably a terrible person, though. So I'm a little bit scared of how much I love his movies because I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's some news about him is going to come out.
Well, I know he has a thing for feet, but I don't really know. I remember that from like years ago. Yeah. Anyway, we're getting off topic here. Maybe the reason he doesn't like it is because it didn't have a lot of like commentary and it seemed just kind of like too straightforward. I don't fucking know. But in any case, he was like, I don't want anything to do with this movie, but he still kind of got attached to it. So basically this movie is about a couple that have a bad upbringing. They come together, they go on a murder spree, they kill I think 52 people in the movie, they get arrested, they kill cops, they're fucking crazy. And like the people they murder are not bad people, they're just straight victims. And yet this movie still was able to sort of like make that seem like sexy, which was really fucking weird. So this movie comes out and, the troubled youth are just like eating it up, right? So you'll see very quickly why I gave this little intro. We're now going to talk about Sarah Edmondson. Sarah was born in 1976 and was born and raised in Muskogee, Oklahoma. There's, I think it's Waylon Jennings, I want to say, song, Okie from Muskogee. That's like puts this town on the map.
Okay.
She was a straight A honor student living with her very rich and well-connected family. Her father was a district court judge for the county. Her grandfather was a Democratic congressman who ran twice for the Senate. And her great uncle was a former governor of Oklahoma who did actually serve in the Senate. So very connected family.
Yeah.
Sarah herself was planning to attend law school eventually, but after high school ran into some issues. Her problems started, I believe, when she was about 13 years old in 1990 when her grandfather, with whom she was very close, died. She had a really hard time with this. And to make matters worse, very shortly after that, her best friend died by suicide. And shortly after that, multiple of her other friends all died in a car accident.
Oof.
So
can't get a break.
Yeah, just trauma on trauma on trauma. And this is like right as her hormones are kicking in. She's 13 going on 14, like everything's changing. This is a pivotal time in a young person's life. So it's a lot of trauma to happen all at once. She had actually been admitted to a psychiatric ward for 8 weeks around this time and continued outpatient treatment after her release. And she did have issues with drug use during this time and got in trouble for that a little bit, but not like legally so much, more just like with school and her parents, right?
Okay.
So after high school, she attended and then dropped out of community college. This was in 1994. And then in 1995, at the age of 18, she enrolled at Northeastern Oklahoma State University, where she met 18-year-old Ben Darras. So the university is in Tahlequah, I think is what you call it. I could be wrong. Midwest cities have, I mean, everywhere has crazy names, but I feel like Midwest cities more than others are like super not phonetic. So anyway, Ben was from Tahlequah, which is where the college is located. So I don't think he was going to school. I think she just like met him in town. And the reason I don't think he was going to college is because he had a very different life than Sarah.
Yeah.
He grew up with, I think, 4 or 5 siblings and an abusive alcoholic father who would beat his mother and terrorize his children. His father eventually died by suicide when Ben, also in 1990. So the time that Sarah's grandfather died, Ben's father died by suicide. Just a few years later, his older brother also died by suicide. Now, his older brother died by suicide after this story takes place, but I think it's important to note that the other members of the family are having a real hard time. Another brother, his older brother, had multiple DUIs and drug arrests, and Ben himself was on a very similar track. Later, Ben wrote about this time, quote, "At the age of 18, I had accomplished exactly nothing. I had not finished school, never had a job, never had a driver's license, had no close friends, and was slowly beginning to use drugs on a regular basis. I can see now I was a person with no dreams, no goals, no hope, and thinking that would never change. Eventually, I just gave up on life completely." So, not a great life. But then he meets Sarah, right?
Mm-hmm.
And trauma attracts trauma.
Yeah, they can relate to each other's bullshit.
Similar timelines for trauma as well. And they start dating and they become immediately inseparable. Just like they are living to be with each other, which is also like never healthy.
No.
Yeah. Sarah even brings him home to meet her parents and they are not impressed. Apparently he wouldn't make eye contact and like barely spoke to them. So they were just like, okay. Like,
not what you want for the person dating your kid.
Your troubled trying to get her life together kid. Yeah.
No.
They did still give Sarah money, and the two used this money for drugs and partying. Like I said, Ben enjoyed drinking. Sarah had issues with drugs. Ben himself said he was using drugs, so this is just like a bad pairing. At one point in early 1995, Sarah again dropped out of college and just like dropped off the map, stopped speaking to her parents altogether for like over a month. And on the evening of March 5th, 1995, Sarah and Ben went up to a cabin owned by Sarah's parents, because again, they've got a lot of money, and watched the movie Natural Born Killers.
There it is. Yeah.
Which at this point was available on VHS.
Oh, VHS. I feel like we should take a minute and be like, if you don't know what a VHS is.
Well, I wanted to actually take a minute and say 2 things. First, if you don't know what VHS is, look it up. It'll make you laugh. It's what I grew up on. I remember when Beta was a thing. But basically, it's a giant tape that you put into a machine and it plays you a movie. The other thing I wanted to mention is now a movie comes out at the theater, or you can watch it on TV, like same day.
Yeah.
Back then, movies would come out. I think they would like kind of gauge how well they did. And then they would go into the production of the videotapes based on how well the movie did in theaters. So it would take like upwards of a year between when a movie left theaters and when it was available to watch at home. So it was a very different situation back then. That's just an aside. But anyway, at this point, it's available on VHS. Before starting the film, which they apparently watched repeatedly that night, the two dropped acid. So they were tripping balls and watching this extremely violent movie on repeat.
I mean, even as someone who loves horror movies, I can tell you that's not the movie you'd want to be on drugs for. Like, it's very, very dark. It's very intense. You'd want something more like, say, Labyrinth with David Bowie would be better. Maybe.
Oh my God, that'd be really good.
Something a little more fun, more light.
Dark is good, like a little bit of dark. Like Labyrinth has that tinge of darkness that would like work well
dark
with
fantasy.
LSD. Yeah. I don't know. Don't take drugs, kids. Anyway.
But if you do, don't watch that movie.
Yeah, definitely don't watch Natural Born Killers. No. But these two loved it. They were inspired. And it's actually thought that this movie inspired more copycat crimes than even A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
Which like inspired a ton. So that night, they stayed up all night talking about driving to a farm and murdering everyone there, just like Mickey and Mallory, the two main characters from the movie. And the following morning, freshly, off of LSD, but no sleep, they packed up Sarah's Nissan Maxima and drove to Memphis, Tennessee, where they heard there was a Grateful Dead concert taking place. But the concert had actually been the week prior, which is a funny mistake that I remember would be possible when you didn't have the internet like you do now. So instead, the two decided to keep driving, and they made their way into Mississippi, where they were actively looking for a farm and instead came upon a cotton mill. Now, one of the things that they had packed in her Nissan Maxima was her dad's .38, which he kept at the cabin, and he kept loaded, which doesn't make any sense, but whatever. At this cotton mill, they found the manager working, and his name was Bill Savage. They went into his office. By this time, it's Tuesday, March 7th. So they've been on the road for about 2 days, and they come in asking him for directions. But Sarah later said that he could tell that they were up to something. So as he's telling them how to get back to the freeway, he kind of comes around the front of his desk, kind of trying to head them off, head off Ben, because he can tell Ben's going to attack him and he's trying to get the upper hand, right?
Yeah.
So as he comes towards Ben pulls out this .38 and shoots him in the head. Sarah later said that Bill threw his hands up and made a, quote, terrible sound. So Ben shot him again and he fell to the ground. As he lay dying, they stole his wallet, which had $200 cash and a bunch of credit cards, and they went to New Orleans and blew all the money there.
Okay.
Meanwhile, a traveling salesman found Bill's body, and police came and investigated, but they had no fucking clue, who killed him or why. Their best guess was it was people out looking for money to spend at the nearby casinos, but the only evidence left behind were the bullets. There were no witnesses. They couldn't find shit.
Yeah.
From New Orleans, the couple went west. They stopped in Ponchatoula, a small town also in Louisiana that I really hope I said right. The couple stopped at a convenience store called Time Savers, which I think is a great name for a convenience store.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah, it's so fucking smart. And 35-year-old Patsy Byers, a married mother of 3, was working the late shift. Sarah went into this convenience store with the gun on her own, and while Patsy was ringing her up, she pulled the gun out and she just shot her in the neck, just straight up from a foot away through the fucking neck.
Oh my God.
Sarah then panicked and ran out, but went back in after Ben was like, the reason you went in there was to rob the place. You got to go get money if you're going to fucking shoot.
Oh my gosh. You can tell they really aren't used to doing this, obviously. And they're kind of
what are we doing?
Yeah.
The drugs wore off. So now they're just flying, So at this time, when she went back in, Sarah knows that Patsy wasn't dead, but Patsy begged for her life and also helped her open the register. Now, Patsy did not physically help her open the register, but she explained to Sarah how to get it open because Sarah couldn't open it. In return, Sarah did not shoot her again, but just left her on the floor, assuming she would die, and the couple fled. Somebody either found Patsy or Patsy was somehow able to call for help, and pretty quickly she was rushed to a local hospital where her life was saved, although she was permanently paralyzed from the neck down because the bullet had severed her spine, which it just gives me chills.
Awful, yeah.
Fucking terrible. Police interviewed Patsy, and they also had clear surveillance footage from the store that showed Sarah's face. Her picture was plastered all over the state of Louisiana on the news, but for 3 months, nothing came of this because she wasn't from the area. So nobody knew who she was.
Yeah.
They didn't have footage of the car. They didn't have footage of Ben. They just had her, and nobody knew who the fuck she was. I think that these two would have 100% got away with this, or at least got away with it for a long ass time. And definitely the Bill Savage murder. But they're teens. And what do teens do?
Yeah, run their fucking mouth. Yeah.
They run their fucking mouth. And they talked and they talked and they talked. And eventually someone they told talked to the police. On June 2nd, 1995, Sarah was arrested at her parents' house and quickly turned on Ben, implicating him in the murder of Bill Savage in return for immunity in that crime. And we can guess that her well-connected parents had something to do with that. She immediately lawyers up and they tell her, here's how you get out of this. Both of them ended up being charged with armed robbery and the shooting of Patsy Byers, and Sarah was also charged with a slew of crimes, including attempted murder. Ben was charged with murder in the Bill Savage case, but of course, Sarah was already granted immunity, so she didn't have to face anything for that. I should also mention, weirdly, that Bill Savage happened to be very close friends with John Grisham.
Wow.
So, yeah, the lawyer turned politician turned like world famous writer.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Very random.
And John Grisham was pissed about what happened, and he blamed the movie and Oliver Stone for this tragedy. Not massacre, but this tragedy, these murders.
Yeah.
Patsy Byers and her family eventually filed a lawsuit against the Edmondson family, asking for compensation for pain and suffering, which I think is more than fair. And in 1996, they also looped in Oliver Stone and Warner Brothers in the lawsuit, saying this film incited violence and copycat crimes and that they should be held liable because they should have known better. This turned into one of the craziest First Amendment cases in the country. And in the end, Oliver Stone and Warner Brothers did win the case, despite John Grisham getting personally involved. So this was like Oliver Stone versus John Grisham, like via the United States government and the First Amendment.
That is insane.
Yeah, it was a huge fucking case. But in the end, they were like, this is freedom of speech. This is not inciting. Like, nowhere do they say, like, go out and fucking kill people. So they ruled in favor of Warner Brothers and Oliver Stone, but I cannot imagine how much money went into this.
Our determination to like blame movies and music and shit is just, I don't know, it always annoys me.
Well, the thing of it is, you have to wonder, like, where do the ideas for these movies and music and things come from? They don't come out of nowhere. They're inspired by society. So
no one is also inspired by just a movie. Like, there's always something going on in their lives and like 12 other things going on.
Yeah, like all of these deaths and this trauma and this Ben's family life and Sarah's, all the deaths of her friends and things, And I'm not saying that absolves them of any guilt, obviously. It doesn't. I'm saying that there's other factors outside of the movie because millions and millions of people watched that movie. And only a few of them decided to copy what it did, So the whole thing's silly. So, Patsy unfortunately died of cancer 2 years after she was shot, and shortly thereafter, the case was dismissed. Okay. Meanwhile, Sarah starts on all her bullshit, saying she shot Patsy because she, quote, saw a demon when, behind the counter, which is interesting because that's also what Mickey and Mallory saw in Natural Born Killers. He then changed tack and said that Ben threatened to kill her if she didn't, quote, take her turn killing someone else. That's also obviously bullshit, and it really pisses me off that this like rich, well-connected woman is just like throwing this poor kid, and he's not a poor kid, he's a fucking murderer, but comparatively poor kid under the bus to try and save her ass when she's clearly equally culpable,
Yeah.
Also, if it was a demon, why'd you go back in and rob the register? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you really thought the woman that you shot was a demon, you wouldn't go back in and like take money. That's
a really weird thing to be like, oh yeah, I also need like $20. Like,
yeah. Well, it was 120, but yes, close. Oh. Anyway, so Sarah and her legal team tried all sorts of shit to get her out of this, including having her confession that she gave in Mississippi thrown out. But obviously it didn't work. Like, they were like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, she said, it was in violation of my Fifth Amendment. And they're like, that applies to like when you're on the stand mostly. So how about no? Eventually, she did plead guilty to the charges against her in the Patsy Byers case, and then tried to play it off as though she'd always wanted to plead guilty because she felt so terrible, but her legal team advised her not to. So just endlessly trying to play the victim, endlessly trying to be like the good guy in this, like, Ben forced me and I'm remorseful and it's like, dude, come on.
Classic killer couple move.
Yeah,
always does
woman,
that. Yeah.
Always. I was scared. Like, okay, girl, like you were scared. You had the only gun between you, and you went into the fucking convenience store and shot the lady. You could have turned it on him. You could have had the lady call 911. You could have done anything. Like, you're full of shit. So anyway, she could have been sentenced to up to 120 years in prison, but received 35. 35 for this attempted murder.
Okay.
It's fine, right? Like, I'm cool with that. But thanks to her connections, she served only 11 years before being released back to whatever life her parents' money can afford her.
Yeah. I mean, again, we don't want to be pro long sentence here on this podcast in general, but it's frustrating when you know for a fact it's because of her connections. And so many people will never get that like opportunity to sneak out like that.
Well, thank you so much for leading me right into my next sentence and my whole thing.
Sorry.
Here. No, it's perfect. It was perfect. You're shepherding in my next point. Ben was given the same amount of time for the Byers shooting, which fine. But then he was extradited to Tennessee for the murder of Bill Savage, where he was given life without parole. And unlike Sarah, who may or may not have changed, but certainly didn't have to in order to return to a normal life, Ben really seemingly has grown up in prison.
Okay.
He graduated from high school, then got a degree from a ministry program. He's turned his life around completely.
God, they were teenagers too.
They were teens. And here's the thing. I don't think that Sarah should have to serve, I don't think either one of them, well, I mean, they did murder somebody. So here's the thing. Sarah's immunity in the case against Bill Savage would not be given to anybody else. No prosecutor would have made that deal with somebody where their parents not a judge and their family not senators and fucking governors and shit. There's no way that they would have been like, yes, we'll make a deal with you, because they could have easily placed her there. All they had to do was have Ben say, yeah, she was there, she was a part of it, and they would have got both of them. So she was given this deal as a favor to her family, not because the prosecution needed it.
Yes.
And that's really problematic for me, because Ben then at 19 years old, gets locked away for the rest of his life for participating in the exact same 2 crimes that she did. So she gets 11 years and he's locked up forever. So he writes a pardon letter in 2010. It sounds very sincere. No mention of Sarah in the letter, which I think is a really important point to make. Only a brief mention of his childhood, and really only as a means of explaining why he was so lost when he committed the crimes. I really fucking doubt he'll ever be let out of prison, just because of where he is. But I find it really upsetting because Sarah didn't have to do any of that and got let out very quickly by comparison. And it's just a glaring example of what money and connections can do for you. And it really, really bothers me. So I don't think either one of them should have been in jail for the rest of their lives, but one of them currently is. And I think that's a really big fucking bummer. So
very stupid discrepancy there.
Yes. But so this is just one of many copycat crimes from natural born killers. And funny enough, I'm doing a subcategory this week because I'm doing another copycat killer case for the next episode.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
and this could have fit into the list idea we had for murders inspired by horror movies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this is also, a crossover case.
Copycat Murders of Natural Born Killers has its own Wikipedia page. So we could easily just do that too. And also same with Scream.
Yeah.
Has its own Wikipedia page. Maybe for Also, I don't know, I kind of want to defend Natural Born Killers. I feel like I like that movie.
It's a good movie. It's kind of pointless in a way. Oliver Stone during the case, he was like, I'm trying to depict how the media glorifies murder, and it shouldn't, because murder is really disgusting. And it's dude, you missed the mark on that though, because you glorified the shit out of this. Whether he meant to or not, it was a glorified movie. It glorified this couple. People wanted to be Mickey and Mallory, even if the people teens didn't want to go as far as murdering.
Right.
They wanted to dress up like them. They wanted.
I think it might have been written with one intention, but then Woody Harrelson and Juliette Lewis are just so fucking cool.
Yeah, they really are.
That they are the ones who kind of ruin the fact that you're not supposed to like them.
Yeah, yeah, their charisma and their it put a spin on it that I don't. I anticipated.
I mean, obviously, Rob Zombie borrows from a lot of movies heavily, and he would be the first to admit it. Sorry, this is Horror Movie Corner with Diva, but I wonder if there's ever been murders inspired by Devil's Rejects, for example, because that movie is directly taking Natural Born Killers, the tone, and directly glorifying the murders. Everyone's partying and murdering people, and it's funny that those murderers are killing people the whole time. He makes no qualms about glorifying it.
I think one of the things about that though that makes it a little less good for copycat crimes is that the whole movie, all of Rob Zombie's movies are over the top kitschy. They're Halloween-y. They're like a costume party version.
They're not
of a
really
serious
romantic.
Movie.
They're not trying to be serious. Yeah.
They're too fake. Yeah, that's the thing is they're not they don't put forward a this could be us vibe. It's a fantasy world.
I guess,
so it's far enough removed from reality, I think.
I'm just saying, if you think Natural Born Killers makes you mad, go watch Devil's Rejects and
whatever,
whoever the third and fourth one is, and that Three from Hell, and
Yeah, those are all gnarly. And the thing is, like we said, Clockwork Orange was like a big copycat crime. Like people were breaking into houses and like raping people left and right, which is fucking horrific.
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing about Clockwork Orange is that Anthony Burgess, the author, actually wrote a final chapter about him turning his life around on his own. And when Stanley Kubrick made the movie, he decided not to include that.
Oh,
and Anthony Burgess was fucking pissed. And it was like this whole thing.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Anyway, we're movie dorks apparently too.
Movie
but
dorks, yeah.
But yeah, pretty fucked up
Interesting.
crime there. Yeah. So yeah, that's the case. What's yours?
So I'm really excited about mine because it's really fucking weird and so Valentine's-y. I can't even express it.
Ooh,
and
awesome.
The romance is gonna keep coming right and left, and I'm partially sarcastic here. Okay.
I love it.
So this is a case of Raymond Hernandez and Martha Beck, or the Lonely Hearts Killers.
Oh, I think there's a few Lonely Hearts killers out there.
Yes.
But
yes.
Yeah.
These seem to be like the Wikipedia top
The
result
ones.
for the Lonely Hearts Killers.
Okay.
So this happened between 1947 and 1949 in New York City and Michigan, which we'll talk about. Raymond Martinez Fernandez was born in Hawaii to Spanish parents. After he moved to Spain to work for one of his uncles, he ended up staying there to get married and start a family in his early 20s. I believe he had 4 kids with his wife there.
Okay.
He served in World War II, and afterwards he just decides, fuck my whole family, and goes back to the United States, abandoning them completely.
Oh shit. Okay. That's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, just spy.
Yeah,
and on the ship over, he actually got a severe head injury that caused severe damage to the frontal lobe of his brain.
Oh, okay.
Red flag.
Yeah, little foreshadowing there.
Yep. And when he got back, wouldn't you know it, he's like, I'll be a criminal, I guess. And he does like thefts and he does like little petty crimes, and just kind of his brain isn't right.
But I want to say it's important to note that like he was already kind of a piece of shit before he hit his
we do
brain,
know
because you don't just abandon your entire family if you're like a cool ass dude.
No, it wasn't a blank slate. He already had something going on. So,
yeah.
Just added a little extra spice, a little extra flavor.
Yeah.
New surprise. So Martha Beck was originally from Florida. I believe Beck is her married name from one of her marriages.
Okay.
She had a really rough upbringing. She was bullied a lot because she was a bit heavier. She had an abusive mom who was really physically abusive to her, and she was also sexually assaulted by her brother.
Ooh, that's not good at all.
Yeah, so a lot of stuff going on. So she, although she graduated nursing school, she had a hard time getting on her feet and finding a job, or holding a job rather.
Mm-hmm.
She had 2 children, and got married to the second child's father, but they quickly divorced. So she has a kind of a string of really unhappy relationships.
That's sad.
And to provide for her kids, she eventually gets a job as a nurse for a children's hospital in Pensacola, Florida.
Okay.
There, she places a Lonely Hearts ad, which is a real term that is like what it was said in the paper for basically singles ads. But like, man, it's kind of mean, I feel like.
Yeah, it's weird how that's like, well, that's not really a thing anymore. I mean, now it's just all online shit, but yeah.
Yeah, nowadays, if you put a singles ad in a newspaper, you're guaranteed a serial killer.
Yeah. People are like, excuse me, sir, you're not even using Craigslist.
No, well, Craigslist is also for serial killers. So
yeah.
Basically, most people are serial killers, but especially if you're using like old-fashioned media or print media, like
right.
But yeah, at this time, this was like, the Tinder of the newspaper.
Right.
And Raymond, who's now in New York City, writes back to Martha, and thus our romance begins.
Okay.
And it's kind of a match made in hell, because Martha is like the queen of being desperate to please, and Raymond is like super manipulative. So this is how they latch into each other.
They're meant for each other in the most terrible way.
Correct. At some point, Martha gets fired from her nursing job, so she straight up takes her 2 kids, dumps them at the Salvation Army, and then goes up to New York City to be with Raymond.
That's pretty fucked.
Yeah.
So she pulls a Raymond, basically.
Yeah.
She does what he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And apparently he really liked that she abandoned her kids to be with him. She was like, oh, that's so romantic.
Yeah. He's like, wow, you really must love me, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh.
And she was super devoted to him, as we'll see. And devoted isn't even like the right word. It's like extreme, the devotion.
Yeah.
So Raymond, basically, Raymond and Martha together start a scam, a murder scam, if you will, where Raymond keeps answering Lonely Hearts ads and selecting women, apparently with Martha's help, who they perceive to be desperate and lonely or like down on their luck. And they get these women to come back to the house where Martha would often pretend to be Raymond's sister and kind of put them at ease by being like, hey, I'm just a lady who lives here. You're safe, right?
Right. Because that is like, even now, like, I feel safer if there's a woman around, which like obviously is not a good, like, good policy to be like, I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly. And so they would try to find, like I said, lonely women who were also wealthy, perhaps, or had some kind of resources so that Raymond could basically seduce and then slowly rob and defraud them, and kind of as they're like dating them before they kill them.
So draining them and then killing them.
It is like a carbon copy of H.H. Holmes.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're dating now. Give me all your money. And you're gone. You know, that is exactly
sucked away all your earnings and everything you have, and now I'm just gonna throw you away into.
And just like H.H. Holmes, he would smooth talk women into signing over their insurance policies, their retirement funds, or other kind of incomes that they were getting to Raymond.
Oof. Okay. They just keep paying out even after they die.
Yes. Oof. Between 1947 and 1949, they are said to have killed at least 20 women.
Wow, that's a lot. So this is like a full-time job for them if they're killing that many in this short of a period, and
neither of them get jobs. This is their job. This is what they do.
It has to be for them to be able to pull this scam and murder that many women in that short of a time.
Yeah, and it's their source of income. This is what they do.
And they're doing this concurrently then. There's like multiple women on the hook at once.
I think so, yeah. Or they burn through them pretty fast.
Really fast. It's gotta be really fast. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
So, and it's hard to find a list of like every single woman, but there's a few that obviously have like notable circumstances that come up more.
Right.
And one woman, Myrtle Young, was engaged to Raymond. She got weirded out when Martha, there's this weird dynamic where Martha doesn't want Raymond to sleep with any of these women, but of course he sleeps with a ton of them.
Yeah. I have to make it real. Like, I'm sure it was his excuse.
Yeah, but that's a constant source of tension, as we'll see. So Myrtle got weirded out when Martha starts sleeping in her bed, watching her to make sure she didn't sleep with Raymond. She's like, I got eyes on you, right?
Yeah. Like, why is, like, that's your sister and she's doing that? That's definitely not good.
So after Myrtle kind of protested and said this is weird, they drugged her, which they like to drug people a lot, and just threw her kind of quasi unconscious onto a bus. And when she got out of the bus, I forget where, Florida or something, wherever she was going, the cops had to like pull her out and be like, is she okay? Because she was like almost dead.
But she survived.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And a lot of women were just defrauded of money, but didn't like report it or anything because they were just embarrassed and they didn't think the cops would do anything. Which is fucking
crazy that there's more victims who were not murdered in this time.
Yes.
That there's that many people.
Definitely. Yeah.
That's
definitely
over
a lot.
The top. That's
correct. Or they were drugged and assaulted perhaps, or they just didn't want to report it. Yeah.
Right.
So although she was in on this murder scheme, like I said, Martha really didn't want Raymond to actually have any romance or sexual relations. And in 1949, Raymond got fake involved with one of these women, 66-year-old Janet Fay. He was about 35 at the time. So he also ranges from like much older women to much younger. So it's like anyone's fair game.
Right.
And Janet here moves in with Raymond. And Martha was really displeased about this, like that they were like their fake relationship was very far advanced, right?
Right.
And so she actually ran into them in bed together, caught them, quote unquote, and she actually attacked Janet with a ball peen hammer to the head.
Oh fuck! Did she kill her?
So after the hammer attack, she wasn't dead, but Raymond proceeded to strangle her to death with a scarf.
Wow. Okay.
So they collaborated on that.
Which is insane because she's probably thinking like, your sister's fucking crazy. Help me.
Yeah.
And then he fucking kills her. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
They then buried her body in the basement of Raymond's sister's house and covered it with cement.
His real sister?
Yeah, his real sister.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Just she doesn't know now there's a body in her house.
God damn.
By the way, I put the address of that house, which is still the exact same structure in Queens, New York. I put it on the murder map.
Oh, fuck, dude. That's wild.
Yeah, same house. So Martha claims later on that she doesn't remember the murder of Janet Faye and that she just only remembers being told by Ray to keep her quiet. And then she blacked out and she was just standing over her body. But it's like, no, by all accounts, it makes sense that Martha was the initiator here because she had this very intense motive about him not sleeping with
the other women. Yeah. So that's ridiculous that she tries to claim that. But it's also like par for the course. This is like a common thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So after this murder, they take their scammery elsewhere and they move probably kind of to escape the heat, right? They move to Grand Rapids, Michigan, or a suburb thereof. And shortly thereafter, they meet a woman named Delphine Downing, who believes like in her early 30s. Okay. She has a 2-year-old daughter, Raynell.
Okay.
And they essentially Delphine lets the pair stay with her. And Delphine is soon after this starts sleeping with Raymond. They have kind of a relationship. And of course, Martha is not happy about it.
Right.
At some point, Delphine, however, catches on to the fact that they're weird scammers. And she starts to freak out and be like, oh, fucking like red flag, red flag. Right. And Martha somehow persuades her to calm down by taking some sleeping pills, which heavily sedate her. And while she's asleep, her daughter, 2-year-old Raynell, starts to cry because she's probably like, what the fuck is wrong with my mom?
Right.
So to silence her, Martha strangles the little girl.
Oh my God.
Yeah, causing like horrible bruising on her neck. And then apparently, this is what Martha says later, because she was worried about Delphine waking up and seeing the bruises, she shot and killed her as she slept.
Wow, she's just got an excuse for everything.
Yeah.
Like, you just brutally attacked a 2-year-old and then murdered her mother after drugging her. Like, there's not really a way to make that not exactly what that is.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucked.
Well, she's got a reason, yeah. So the couple, Raymond and Martha, kind of mill around in the house for a few days before ultimately deciding to kill the little girl, and they do so in a horrific way. They drown her by holding her head in a bucket of water.
Why?
I'm sure she's fucking kicking and fighting. Yeah.
Why would you fucking murder a child?
It's in a torturous way, yeah.
These fucking people. There was absolutely no reason. They listen, I'm not like murder her this way, but like if you're gonna kill a child, like make it fucking quick. And they had the opportunity to do that. They're just sadistic.
Yeah.
Fuck them.
No, they have guns and they're like, let's drown her in a bucket.
Let's torture murder her instead.
It's insane.
Fucking pieces of shit.
After they bury the bodies of Raynell and Delphine in the basement of the home, they went to the movies.
Oh God. Just fucking
just a Sunday, like having a good day. But when they come back from the movies, however, police are surrounding the house and they're there to arrest them, not for the murders they just committed, but actually for the murder of Janet Faye.
Okay.
Because they've been literally like trying to go get him, right?
Yeah.
From back in New York City. So prosecutors end up strategically only charging them with this murder, which took place in New York, because what does New York have at this time? The death penalty.
Oh, okay.
So that's what they're doing. So Raymond quickly confessed to about 17 murders in gruesome detail, going through everything they ever did, including Janet's murder, because he thought they were going to stay in Michigan and just stay in prison forever. But once he realized that they were actually being sent back to New York, he retracted the whole confession.
Yeah, his tune is going to change. Yeah.
Never mind.
That wasn't me.
And he said he did it to save Martha, as if Martha's like did it all by herself. Like, no, y'all are very collaborative.
That's ridiculous to even attempt to say that. Is so dumb.
Yes. And he's the one who was communicating with all these women through the ad, right? So it's like impossible to separate the two. I will add here just a note about the press coverage, this was a huge case at the time. It was super salacious for lots of reasons. And the press was like disgustingly misogynistic and fat phobic and disgusting about Martha, who, like I said, was a bit heavier, but their coverage of the crime is like very, even though, like I said, I think they were partners in this project of murder, it's very heavily leaning towards demonizing Martha, right? Because she's a fat woman. And so they called her simpering, a 200-pound figure of wrath, the giggling, unattractive divorcee. So you get the tone. They're like really going in on Martha and her appearance rather than like the fact that this is rather than the fact that this is a couple who did this together. It's all kind of becomes about Martha.
Right. Ugh.
And the trial was super salacious. Raymond got into detail on the stand about all of his sexual relationships with the various victims. Kind of like these sexy anecdotes about like, oh, one time we played strip poker to see if victim Esther Hen or Martha would get to sleep with me. Like that was something he talked about on the stand.
So he's like having fun. He's like enjoying being like this, like everybody wanted me and like I'm so clever and like
obviously
sexy.
He was a charismatic, manipulative guy, but I think he really enjoyed feeling like he was almost like the head of his little mini like sex cult or something where everyone's obsessed with him.
And they're like letting him do this on the stand, which is really fucking twisted.
Yeah, and Martha kind of played into it on the stand too. She wore, when she took the stand, she wore what was said to be an inappropriate outfit for the time, but now just sounds like extremely appropriate. but it's the late 40s, right? Or it's like 1950. But she wore, it was like a summer dress with green wedges, and I'm like, so totally modest. Like normal dress.
Yeah.
But I guess because it was a summer dress, quote unquote, maybe that meant it was like a little bit shorter or lighter. I don't know.
I mean, it feels weird for a court.
Yeah, it was like it was too casual, perhaps.
Yeah.
And she on the stand, she talked about their sex life extensively, which involved some unconventional things. So they were into some kinky stuff.
Okay.
It also involved, quote unquote, big sarcastic quotes here, voodoo, which I don't think they were actual practitioners of in any fucking sense, but I think it was just a thing that was, for long, elaborate racist reasons I won't get into, was at the time used almost like in a satanic panic way to kind of be like, oh, shocking, right?
Right.
But anyway, so I also think that there's this titillating, salacious thing because it's so shocking to like, people don't like it when fat people are sexual, right?
Yeah, no.
And so like that's kind of also at play here because she's a fat person and they're like, oh, how could she be talking about sex and murder and all this stuff?
Nobody wants to have sex with her. Like, yeah. Which is still something going on today. Like fat phobia is fucking insane. Like,
yeah. So the way they talk about her is gross, even though of course she's a piece of shit. She's a murderer, but still there's these bigger things happening here.
Yeah. That's a separate issue. Like just because somebody's a piece of shit, you don't get to like tear them down for the way that they look, especially when it's like a larger like social implication, like what you're talking about. It's
there's a bigger trend happening that's being applied to this. So also they were kind of both like hamming it up and happy on the stand. Apparently Raymond was really happy. Raymond was kind of like laughing and happy on the stand. Martha, quote unquote, giggled when she talked about Raymond's deception of the victims. She said, quote, here's two quotes from Martha. We're gonna have a couple more but they're so good. Quote, Raymond got a kick out of the photographs of some of the old hags who write to him and expected him to correspond with them.
I mean, that's her also, like, I hate to say it, but that's her being insecure.
Yeah.
And like projecting.
To call them old hags.
Yeah.
And quote from Martha, a request from Mr. Fernandez to me is a command. I loved him enough to do anything he asked me to.
That's sad. It's sad. Like, fuck her, but it's also sad.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if this is like a BDSM thing or just like a she's really, really, really insecure thing.
I think it's probably both. It's at least insecurity. It's probably both.
Yeah. So they are both inevitably found guilty of first-degree murder. Once they're in prison, there's lots of drama where they kind of like hate each other one minute, but then they're professing their love for each other the other minute. But they kind of end things in love still, apparently.
So they're just a mess.
They're a sloppy couple to the end. Yeah. So a rumor starts that Martha's having a relationship with a guard, and she actually comes out and releases a statement saying this is totally false. She's so offended. She's so outraged. And she says this rumor was started by Raymond.
Okay.
So there's like back and forth drama. Also, this whole time he was in prison, Raymond was actually writing back and forth with his old original wife from Spain. And
who knows what's going on?
Yeah. And the letters are like, love your wife, love your husband. And I'm like, what the fuck?
So again, he's just really manipulative. He's very charismatic, and he also knows the women to choose.
Yeah.
He's not choosing them on accident.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So later that year, they were actually on 1951. So back in the 50s, if y'all don't know, like people would get sentenced to death and get executed like 5 minutes later. Like it was like very fucking prompt at this time.
They didn't
So
fucking
they
play.
yeah. So they were executed like 6 months later, basically in 1951, at New York Sing Sing prison on the same day by electric chair.
Wow, they on the same day. That's a thing.
Yes.
Like they would kill like killer couples and people who were like
Mm-hmm.
in cold blood. They were both hung on the same day.
Yeah, and the
You know?
electric chair is a horrific way to die.
That's fucking crazy that they would
Yeah.
even like allow that. Is fucking like,
and that's late for electric chair, 1951.
Yeah. Holy fuck.
In one of her last statements before her execution, Martha said that hers was a love story and she committed all of her crimes for love.
Oh, that poor deluded woman.
Yeah. So, quote, here's Martha's famous quote here that's reprinted in every article, so I have to read it. It's great. Quote, "What does it matter who is to blame? My story is a love story, but only those tortured with love can understand what I mean. I was pictured as a fat, unfeeling woman. I am not unfeeling, stupid, or moronic. In the history of the world, how many crimes have been attributed to love?"
That's really what she said.
Yeah.
Good God.
And
I'm sorry, but like, oh God. Okay. Yeah. It's like, have you watched the You?
Yeah.
You watch that show? I feel like that's straight out of like that guy's mouth. Like,
yeah.
like were
It's
he to
like
be put to death, that's like exactly what he would write. And it's like, no, you're just fucking wild. Like you're just crazy as a murderer. Like there's nothing romantic about this.
I will say they are very into the romance of it all though, Martha and Raymond, even though they're just pieces of shit. They're like, no, this is romantic, god damn it.
Our murders are romantic. Like, no, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, but no.
And then at the end, Martha did send Raymond a last minute note professing her undying love, quote unquote. And he said, quote, "The news brought to me that Martha loves me is the best I've had in years. Now I'm ready to die. So tonight I'll die like a man."
Dude, they're like really out there. They are not in touch with reality at all.
No,
Meanwhile,
they're in their
he's writing
own little,
his wife in Spain too, though. Like, what the fuck? Who do they think they're fooling? Like, this is
they're off on their own romance, their own like cloud of romance delusion, and they're like so happy there that it's just really weird.
Yeah.
All right.
Jesus.
Lastly, this is kind of besides the story here, but I have to tell you their last meals because they
love that.
It's interest. I do have to include it. And they're very 50s, I think, too. So Martha got fried chicken with no wings, which I take offense to because that's my favorite thing.
Clearly, there's something wrong with her to not want the wings.
Fried chicken with no wings, French fries, and then lettuce and tomato salad.
Ew, that is very. I bet it had like a cream dressing.
I bet it was like had like more mayo on it. Like
fucking Thousand Island, just in ketchup and mayo mixed together. That's what my dad still eats, and he was born in 55. So I'm telling you.
I mean, I like iceberg. I like that's fine with me.
But, iceberg's great, but like, I don't know. Yeah.
Raymond Fernandez ordered an onion omelet with French fries, chocolate, and a Cuban cigar. Which I'm shocked they gave them cigars, but I guess they did.
Yeah, that's not a meal, bro. That's weird they gave that to him. Huh.
I think they should definitely get food and cigarettes and alcohol if they want.
Was this prior to the embargo then? Like against Cuba?
Good question. I think it was.
Must have been for them to be like in the prison giving them Cuban cigars.
You can get Cuban cigars here.
Now, but for a long time you couldn't. Right. It was a big thing. Right. Yeah.
Anyway, onion omelet.
Oof, I hope they cooked the onions before putting them in the eggs.
Raw onions. Yeah.
It's so nasty. That's your last meal? Like, what kind of life did you lead that's the last thing you want to eat? Like, Jesus.
Oh my God. I think I'd rather have the fried chicken, to be honest.
With the fucking wings, though. God.
Yeah.
People are nuts.
Oh my God. Yeah. So
all right. That's them. That was good. I'm glad we ended with kind of a more fun one. I mean, it's terrible, but like they are fun. They are weird.
They're wild. Yeah.
Yeah. Mocking them brings me a joy I feel okay about. So. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. Once again, we'll be back with 2 more similar cases in a couple of days. Thanks for all the ratings. We're getting a lot more ratings on Spotify. Yay. It's really, really cool. If you listen to us on Spotify and you haven't given us a rating, please do. Share us with your friends, like rate, review. Join our Patreon. It's cheap and you get cool stuff. It helps keep us afloat, gives us a reason, giving us a reason to keep going besides just our love of true crime. And write us with case suggestions. Anything y'all want to hear, we're happy to do. And I guess until the next one,
stay
off our
list.